All right, let's go ahead and get started. So, welcome everyone to What's New from the February release. We're going to be spending about 30 minutes together today with a Q&A portion at the end. If you have any questions that pop up, you can just throw those in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to those at the end of Misty and Brittany's presentation. So, Misty, who is going to be showing us the new desktop experience today, is our technical support manager. And then we also have Brittany, who has also been on the Workforce Ready platform for a couple of years now as well. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Misty now.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thanks, Liz. And just wanted, Liz, if you can just let me know for sure that you can see my screen explaining where to find release notes.
Yep, you got it.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll kind of start with that, which you can actually go to log into Workforce Ready, go to the service provider documents, and download the release notes. And you also can go to help.beyondpay.com and download those. But don't forget, you can get the user guides there, and also lots of information about the new desktop experience, also known as the new UI. So go ahead and check those out. And because today we're not going to review all of the details, obviously, from the release. We're going to spend more time in talking about some highlights for new things that have came out in February, some of our favorites, some of our feedback we've gotten from clients that they love. We're also, as Liz said, I'm actually going to cover the new desktop experience, the charts and graphs, and actually give you some examples of how it can help you with compliance and give you a lot of insight into not just compensation, but just in general. Also, help you identify trends, with the charts and graphs and things like that. We'll get into some examples of attendance around the new UI. And with the February release, there was a good bit of updates around the new desktop experience and the new UI. So Brittany and I are going to kind of tag team some of those highlighted sections, which is on the left-hand side of your screen. So the new easyBackgrounds integration, we're going to get into talking about that. And I'll actually cover that here in just a second with you. Brittany's going to spend some time with you to talk about the time entry approvals, which is a really cool new feature I think you're going to love. And then some updates to the advanced scheduler. So I'll go ahead and jump in, and you guys definitely put in any questions that you have as we, Brittany and I, start going through all of this. There's a lot of really cool information that you're going to get today. So I'll go ahead and let's jump right in and start talking about the easyBackgrounds. So we've had an integration with easyBackgrounds, which is, if you're not familiar with easyBackgrounds, it's actually an employer or a employment screening software, where you can actually request your drug screens and your background checks, state and federal, physicals, things like that. You can do those types of requests. Well, we've built an integration with that company, and it's a seamless integration. I'm going to show you some screenshots of that, but you will still have the ability to have that direct relationship with the easyBackgrounds. And so we'll go ahead and just kind of click through the next screen here, which is, apologize that this is a little bit blurry, but I think you'll get the idea here is you're actually able directly from Workforce Ready, and this is actually a report in the Beyond Pay Workforce Ready system, where you can actually go ahead and initiate your background screens by clicking one of the, the top button, the Initiate Background Check button. So once you are ready to initiate that background check for that new hire, then you could click that button. It automatically logs you into the Easy Backgrounds system. Making it a lot easier, that your data entry will be cut down and things like that. You can also check the details of a background check that has already been completed. So again, I apologize, this report's a little bit blurry, but the on this report, you hopefully will be able to see that, pending statuses, or if there was a problem, you can see where that request is at from this report. You're going to see another report in just a second. But initiating that background check, that again, drug screen, whatever type of request that you have around your employment checks can be done. This is what the view would look like once you do click one of those buttons. You can, again, you can enter what type of check you're wanting to do. You can view billing information. You can even submit that authorization that's required for a lot of your criminal background checks and things like that to, directly from the system that goes right to the employee. It's a link, the employee clicks on it and they authorize that background check. So all of that is going to be made available with this integration. So this is that report. I'd kind of promised I would show you that's not quite so blurry. This is a background check history report. That is, once this is enabled for your company, you would be able to see any historical, checks that you've done. You can see what type of request, and again, that status, where it's at in that process. So that's a little bit of information about Beyond easyBackgrounds and that integration between Beyond Pay and that easyBackgrounds. So it's a really cool integration. So that was, I don't have that built in my demo company. So I went ahead and just did some screenshots for you. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Brittany for her to get into time entry approvals, and then she'll go into the advanced scheduler from here.
Thanks, Ms.
Okay,
B.
you're welcome. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and Brittany is going to take over.
Okay, are you able to see my notification screen?
I do.
Okay, great. So there's a great feature in this system. It all comes from a notification called Report Dialogues and Notifications. And what it does is at the end of a pay period, it will send an email to your managers saying that they have time entries awaiting their approval. And what's great about this, it's going to give them a link that's going to show them all their employees, all their time entries that need to be approved, but they don't have to log in. All they have to do is open the link and quickly approve. This is great for a bunch of different scenarios. Maybe you have some third-party approvers, like a temp agency. You don't want to give them login credentials to Workforce Ready. Or maybe you have an offsite manager who only does time approvals for hours that are worked in their cost center. Or maybe you have a manager that's not so tech savvy, and it will be way easier for them if they can just click a link without logging in to look at those time entries. So let me show you what that report looks like. So after clicking the link, it's always defaulted to show subtotals only. But once you open it up, it's going to give you the employee's name and the time entries for each day that they worked in your cost center that you manage. And you can simply go line by line and approve, or just do select all the time entries and just approve all at once. And then those time entries are done. No login is required. So if you're interested in implementing that, I would definitely reach out to your CSR, because it's definitely a neat, cool feature. Definitely saves a lot of time. Now what I'm going to be covering next is a great update to the scheduler, the advanced scheduler. So there's this new view called View by Day. Right now, you can only view it day by day, but there actually is a new release coming out sometime in April where this will now be a view by week. So just to go over this, so you can see at the top here for this day, I have, let me just go to one with open shifts. I have 32-hour schedules for this day. This is my budget cost, and I have 16 hours of shifts that aren't taken yet that are open shifts. With this view, you can bring in employee photos, which is really neat. This column here is just saying how many hours they're working for that week. And over here, you can see their schedules, and it's way more user-friendly now. I can go and hit manage, and this is the view now if I want to edit a shift, attach a skill, a cost center, or any additional information down here. And right here, you can see their schedule for the whole week. Also, looking at this graph here, I can quickly see that I have 4 scheduled, but I have 6 required shifts. And you can see the difference of the 2 right here under Manage Open Shifts. I'm seeing I have both of these shifts for Wednesday, April 3rd. And I'm as a manager right now, FYI. So as the manager, I can go in, I can select those open shifts, and I can select on this side of the screen what employees I want to offer those open shifts to. Now, jumping into an employee now, I'm going to show you the view of an employee on the mobile app, how easy it is for an employee to pick up an open shift, request coverage, or do a shift swap. So to do that, I'm going to navigate to my employee's schedule. And right here, I can see some days that they're working. And to go into that shift, I can just hit the little blue button here. If there were any open shifts posted, the employee would simply just hit show open shifts. I didn't post any, but they would see if there were available right up here. And let's say on April 5th, my employee wants to do a shift swap. Super easy. They would just click here, and it's going to show all the employees that work their skill, that are working that day at a different time, that I can quickly just ask to do a shift swap. And once you do select their name and hit submit, this employee would get a notification, and they could easily just hit accept or reject. If you want to take it a step further, we can build a workflow that enables manager approval. So after, if this employee would approve, you can force the manager to approve as well, or you can just leave it to the employees to do the shift swaps upon themselves. And that wraps up the scheduler. I'm going to bring it over to Misty again.
Okay, perfect. And we are doing today's webinar completely in the new desktop and new mobile experience. So just kind of keep that in mind. Your views might look a little different if you're not already using that, haven't already rolled out the new UI and slash also known as the new desktop experience. So, you know, if we're really encouraging all of our customers to go ahead and adopt the new desktop experience, because you can see how cool that mobile app was, number one, and number two, you're about to see how cool the new desktop experience is from an admin's perspective. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen. And I'm going to log into Workforce Ready as a company administrator. And Brittany, can you see the login screen?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes, I can.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. So again, I'm going to log in as a company administrator, but remember, the desktop experience is controlled in security profiles. So you're actually able to control what who has access to the new desktop experience again in security profiles. So let's go ahead and get in as an administrator. So an administrator does a lot of different things, and we're going to see a lot of different charts. And you may want to have some of these charts only showing for managers. Maybe it's not necessarily an admin feature, or something that they need to take care of. In that case, the admin wouldn't have that chart, built on their dashboard. But just a really quick review of the desktop experience, the new desktop experience. If you have drop downs at the top of your screen, and when you hover or click on those labels, it kind of opens up like a window, and then you kind of click on that drop down. If you have those drop downs at the top of your screen, you're using what we call the classic or old UI, also known as old UI. And you're going to eventually want to convert to this. October is the deadline, for making that conversion over to the new UI. There's no cost to making the conversion, and you're going to see the value of it in just a second. But another difference besides the drop downs is the hamburger menu. So this little 3 lines that you see here, if I click on these 3 lines, you see some options, you see a star. These are my favorite items, my favorite parts of the system that I go to the most. If you've got a start widget configured, this is already kind of done for you. If not, this is part of what we'll do for you during implementation of the new desktop experience. The single person icon up here, this is information on myself. Whoever the person is that's logged in, this is their personal information. And then if I'm responsible for managing someone or a team of people, then the double people icon here is where I would do most of what I needed to do if I wanted to come into any of these sections. If you're a payroll processor and you're processing payroll as maybe a primary responsibility, I would come into payroll and I could go to process payroll. I'm going to show you a shortcut to that in just a few minutes using the new dashboard. So that's kind of an example of how the differences are. But the drop downs, the system is the same. It's just the view of the system and how much insight this new desktop experience is. So the company settings, this is where a lot of time is spent during implementation, and things like that. But this is where your company settings, as an administrator, you might see this. Okay, icons are different in some cases. I'm going to come back into here really quick. So there was some changes made to how the system is looking at reports. So like under time, all of your time related reports are going to be found under time. All of your payroll related reports are going to be found under payroll. Pretty logical, the way that this new UI is working. And you also probably notice, obviously the first page here is my home dashboard, but you can also see I've got some additional tabs going across the top. So each one of these will allow me to basically get insight into what's happening with my data. So I just clicked on the HR tab and I'm actually able to configure these dashboards. And again, this is what Beyond Pay is going to help you with when we implement this, is can actually configure these dashboards to give you insight into your data using these charts and graphs. So I'm going to give you some of those examples. The first one that I have here is the average salary by department and gender. So the EEOC decided that we needed an Equal Pay Act. So this chart is going to help me know if I'm in compliant with that law. So let's look at it. And I'm just going to kind of zoom in just a little bit here so you're able to see a little bit more on this webinar. But if I hover over this, you can see that my administration department, it's pretty fair. I'm actually paying my females more than my males. If I hover over the customer service area, it's pretty even, as far as what I'm paying my males and females. Finance, I do know that Jennifer Aniston is in my females, so I'm paying Jennifer a lot of money. But anyway, so females are, I'm probably in compliance here. Maybe I want to figure out why I'm paying females so much, potentially. But we're going to kind of focus on this manufacturing for the webinar today. And, manufacturing, I'm actually on average paying my males about $25,000 more than I'm paying my females. So I definitely want to dig down into this a little bit more. And the way I do that is just by clicking on the graph. And when I do that, I'm just going to expand this out a little bit so we can see more on the screen. When I do that, you can see I've got some additional charts here. Now I've got the data up here also. If I wanted to scroll through this report and see the data that's in here, I could definitely do that, but I don't have to, because these charts are looking at that data and giving me the information that I need. I could even hide this data, this report, if you will. I could hide that information and not even see it, only see, this chart, these charts. But on initial glance here, I can tell that I've got all white employees. Maybe that's an issue. Maybe it's not with only 3 employees, but it is good to know that, that could potentially cause you problems if eventually you have a lot of employees and they're all white, so that can give you some insight into that. Maybe your next hire you might want to diversify that just a little bit. But if I look at this third chart here, I can see that I've got males that were hired. I've got one male that was hired in 1990. I've got another male that was hired in 2003. And then I see that I've got one female that was hired in 2011. It's probably because of years of service, potentially. I could even have a chart like this for job changed, when the last job change was. That will give me some insight. Now, I could continue to drill down into this data and get down to the nuts and bolts of just this one female employee if I wanted to. But for today's webinar, I'm going to go ahead and come out and we'll kind of look at a couple more examples. That particular example was related to EEOC compliance. You can see some additional information charts that I have here related to some other EEOC requirements. Again, I could drill down into that data, if I needed to. Something kind of caught my attention. Headcount. So, if you're in HR, headcount and turnover is super important. So these charts and graphs will actually give me what my actual headcount is. I can compare that with my turnover, but then I can even and I could click into these and drill down into that data if I want to, the same way that you saw me do just a second ago. And now I have, some additional charts. I'm just kind of scrolling down. What's my percentage, my turnover percentage for the month? I could have a lot of other charts around turnover. What's my trends in my turnover reasons? Why are people leaving? I've just got some pretty simple reasons here, but you can, depending on what your reasons are, those could all be in the system. And in turn get the data that you want. Okay. All right. So those are some HR pretty common needs, compliance, turnover. If the data is in the system, in most cases, we're able to get some charts and some insight into that data with the new desktop experience. Okay, let's look at a couple other tabs of information here. So if I go over to the time tab, missing punches is probably more of a manager function. Maybe this would be a chart that your manager might have, where he can make sure that he corrects any missing punches. Again, drill down into that, correct that missing punch if you need to. Also change requests, if your company uses change requests instead of just manually entering an individual punch, we can have a chart for change requests. Approval states. So, as a manager, you probably want to know who submitted their timesheet, which one of the employees, reviewed their time and submitted it. So that can help you with that. But as an administrator, and probably as a manager, you want to keep an eye on overtime and what's happening with that. I can see that, I've got 5 hours of overtime in security. It's not a whole lot of overtime, but, I do have some overtime there. And I can quickly see that. I could drill down into this and look at that data if I want to, but I can continue to have some charts here that might give me some additional insight into why I'm having that overtime. Something that immediately jumps out to me is I've got 90 absences. This is a demo company, so hopefully you don't have that kind of absences, but let's drill down really quick into this. So if I click on the 90 absences, it's drilling down into some additional charts. So I can see who is, who has the most absences. I can see which days they are absent the most. I can see that Aaron has a lot of absences. Maybe his schedule's wrong. Maybe he is really a bad employee and there should be some corrective action issued for him, performance improvement plan or something like that. So getting that insight will really help you, with making decisions. With the classic view, you're filtering through data, which, the data is good and reporting is excellent in the system, but it is data where these charts and graphs with the new dash or the new desktop experience, you're getting that insight, that kind of people analytics that you need. Okay. And I'm getting close to our 30-minute mark. I definitely know you guys are busy, so just a couple more things to show you, and then I'll turn it over, and hopefully we've got some questions. So just wanted to talk a little bit about payroll. I know everybody on the call is definitely interested in that insight related to payroll. So just added, a chart here for labor distribution by department. I could, again, drill down into, I can see my officers. There's a lot of, cost associated with that. So maybe that's to be expected. If not, then I would want to drill down into that and look into what's happening. Also, I can see trends in my finalized payrolls. I can see that February was a really big payroll month of February of last year. I can see June was a big, maybe those are my bonus runs. That if that's to be expected, then that's great, but seeing those trends is really helpful. So earlier I had shown you the hamburger menu and how you could go in the long way to get to where you actually process your payroll. Well, I've created a chart that actually will take me quickly into all of my payrolls. I can see I've got 4 finalized payrolls. I can see I've got some open payrolls, and I've got a payroll that I'm in process of. So it's been recalculated or it's in process. So I can actually click on this chart, and it's going to bring me into my payrolls, and here's my recalculated one. So now I can go ahead and click this little $sign, and it brings me right to my steps. So not only is it going to give you that insight, but there's links that are really kind of shortcuts to various parts of the system also. And then just one quick finish before we get to the question and answer section is the compensation. We do have a compensation module that will actually give you, based on your pay grades, will actually tell you if someone is above or below where they should be based on their pay grade. So I won't go into this too much, but if you are using the compensation module, I'm just going to kind of hover over here. I can see that there's 3 employees. I can see that Beth is below where she should be in her pay. I can see that Michael is too, and Nathan. Now, if I drill down into this actually brings me to, actually bring me to these 3 employees, and then I can actually see a lot more data as we've seen in the other screens, and I can actually change that. So compensation module looks at performance reviews and a lot of different things to help you know where you need to have your employees. But so again, we wanted to keep this within 30 minutes. Didn't want to, overwhelm too much with all of this. But as Brittany said earlier, if you have the interest in this new desktop experience, then definitely reach out to your CSR. We're prepared to answer questions. We're prepared to roll it out. You know, whatever your next step is, definitely reach out to them. And we've also, in this webinar, updated some documents. There's like a frequently asked questions. I think there's a link to the YouTube video. So take a look at that after the webinar, and you'll get even more information. It's short and concise, so it's not going to take too much time to go through that. But Liz, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to you to take a look and any questions that came in.
Absolutely. Yep. Just a reminder, if you guys have any questions that popped into your mind as we went along, you can go ahead and throw those in the Q&A box at the bottom. One of the questions is, can we roll out the new desktop experience and mobile app to our admins first?
Yes, and this is actually a really common question that we've gotten as we've talked to customers. You absolutely can. You can roll it out to administrators first, just so you get that familiarity with this new experience, you know, and then gradually maybe you roll it out to your managers next, and then your employees. And the reason we can do that is because it's controlled in security profiles.
Perfect. Another question is, there was a webinar held a few months back about the new UI. Is there a link for that I can review? Misty, I can go ahead and take this one real quick, if you don't mind. Absolutely. We actually house all our webinars in our support center. It looks a little new and different these days, but I'll be sure to link the support center in its entirety with the recording that I'll email out to everyone tomorrow. So you can go ahead and search for the keyword webinar. And I believe that was the October release. That will have that new UI webinar info in it. So that should be what you're looking for. And lastly, Misty, how are the charts built?
So all of the charts that you've seen, they start from a report, really. And so, you know, when we start thinking about building a chart for you, we're gonna, you know, kind of start to understand what your biggest needs are, and then we're gonna, build a report with the data, and then, you know, building the chart is actually pretty easy once we have the report built. So it starts with that report, and then the chart is added once you have the report. Great question.
Great. Okay. Well, I think that's all we have for today. Thanks for sticking around, everyone. Keep an eye out for tomorrow's message with recording, the FAQ, more info on past webinars, lots of good information. Real quick, I think something that could benefit the group just popped in. Misty, as an administrator, can someone flip between the old UI and new UI to assist people who maybe haven't migrated to the new look?
Yes, great question.
Yeah.
So under this hamburger menu that you heard me talk about earlier, if I click on this hamburger menu, at the bottom, you see home and dashboard. If you really like how your dashboard looks and you're not quite ready to convert from that dashboard that you're so used to using, you can still have access to that and roll out the desktop experience, because there's some settings that we can actually have turned on where these two are an option. If I go ahead and switch over, you'll see this is what my dashboard looks like in my demo company with the old or classic UI. So, you know, this is that start widget that I referred to earlier, that which it is actually your favorites. So if I go back into the new UI or new desktop experience, then these favorites, this start item here, this is that start widget. So all of these items are what's in that start widget. So that was a great question. So don't be worried that, oh, I'm going to lose my current dashboard and my shortcuts and all of that. You can still have that.
Another question, Misty, is where can they find the new Easy Backgrounds option?
So if you're interested in Easy Backgrounds, there's something that we would have to turn on. And once we turn that on, then, and there's a little bit of configuration that we would, do to, and just a tiny bit of data that we would have to collect from you. And then you would have access to that. So if you're interested in the Easy Backgrounds, let your CSR know.
Perfect. And again, you can always follow up with your CSR if any questions pop into your head after today's webinar. But with that, I think we're going to go ahead and close out for today. Thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.